gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, and this is the Evolution of Movies show, but I am not alone. They are the Omar Epps and Craig Sheffer to my crusty old James Caan. It's Andy Rossi and James Shippey. How you guys doing?
Doing lovely. Thank you, Jack.
Doing well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this movie. But before we talk about the movie itself, let's talk about what this show is. What the show is we watch movies and we talk about them and then we chat about them, kind of like an Oprah book club style. And we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So started in 1990. Then in 1991, 92, and now we're 93, and that means we go to 1994 next week. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. We're talking about the here and now, and the here and now is 1993. Let me take you back. Theaters are graced with movies like Falling Down, Tombstone, A Bronx Tale, and the cinematic classic Son-in-Law starring Pauly Shore. But we aren't watching any of those. We're watching what ESPN calls college football's favorite cult classic, The Program, a movie where a college football coach forfeits it all but winning to get his troubled team to the big game. Now, this was an Andy Rossi pick, so I'm going to start. James, thoughts going into this movie, thoughts overall about this movie? Let me know kind of the broad strokes.
Well, when Andy picked The Program, I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. That's nice. I mean, every guy, I'm from Texas. So, I mean, football is number one down there. I didn't know how big football was till I moved out of Texas. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember growing up seeing this movie. I didn't think much of it at the time. I'll be honest with you. It was cool, but it may have been too adult-like for me. Before I watched it, but watching it this time, I really liked it. Actually, I thought it was not exactly how I remembered it, and I don't know if you guys had the same kind of remembrance, but it was different because you had a lot of relationship stuff going on and more in-depth stuff going on with the lead quarterback, and of course Darnell Jefferson, played by the ever smooth Omar Epps. I just kept calling this dude Smooth every time he would talk. Smooth. He's spitting game to Halle Berry, which every guy would come that strong, if you want to. So,
yeah. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
And he took all of the shots.
Oh, yeah, he did.
He was heaving them up, man. He wasn't holding back at all.
Yeah, Andy, so this was your pick. And for anyone who's only listening to the audio version, explain that shirt you got on.
Oh, I'm so excited. So, yeah, I got this is an official Joe Kane jersey.
Kane is able, number 13.
Shout out to listener Nick Orsi. You're probably in your car right now, but I'm wearing the jersey you gave me, so thank you, buddy.
Yeah, so Andy, tell me about why you picked this movie, or tell the listeners. You told us off air, but tell the listeners and the viewers.
I feel like this was one of the most quotable movies I had with me and all my friends, and we loved it. And I wanted to play college football, although I'm 5'9", 160 in high school. So probably wasn't going to happen. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many characters. I mean, we just always had a great time talking about the different characters in this movie, as we'll talk about. But watching it again, man, just what an epic film.
Yeah, you told us that before we watched it that you loved the quotes, and there were many, and I'm going to let you take most of them. So as we go through this, feel free to just bust these out. Shout out Mac, by the way. I think he was probably the quote machine of the whole thing, in my opinion. But speaking of quote machines and opinions and all that good stuff, this is the Evolution of Movies podcast, and to help us grow, we got to ask the listeners and the viewers a huge favor. Give us a like, give us a comment, subscribe, 5-star reviews, any and or all of those things. And hey, maybe even do us a favor and hit the share button, share it with your friends. That way the show can grow. And that's how we, as the landlords in People Under the Stairs would say, make all that money. We start the movie on a rainy day in football town, USA. A college team loses a big game and a coach is left holding the bag after a 2-year skid, while the players just hate the fact that they have to see their families for the holidays. But Scott Kahn's dad is told that after 2 years of losing, he may get fired, and he's shocked about that. So he goes recruiting new talent. And Darnell, the guy that was recruited because his dad wants him to get good grades, but never once checks in on him ever again after this moment, gets to campus where a 40-year-old quarterback introduces him to Catwoman. And Darnell immediately shows us that football isn't the only game he knows, with lines like, "I don't know a lot of girls like you. You got a lot of class." Real efficacious. And it works. The final piece of the stage is set when Darnell goes to a bar and meets the early 90s edgy football movie version of the cast of the Magic School Bus. James, again, this is your first time kind of getting into this. Andy knows it inside and out, so we'll start with you. We see kind of the characters that we're going to be dealing with and setting up the scene. Tell me your thoughts as we sort of set the stage here.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? I mean,
there's so many characters. It's gonna be hard to like reel this in.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very ensemble-esque movie, even though you have the two leads with Joe Kane and Darnell. But yeah, James Caan, I love how they sit him down and he's like, after 12 years at a job, and they're like, yeah, we're looking to move on. And he's like, what? I've been here for only 12 years. I'm like, really? Are you serious? Like, who? Yeah, that's a long time.
I also like how he's shocked that he's been losing for 2 years straight, and he's shocked that he's in the hot seat. Like, yeah. If I failed at my job for 2 years, I wouldn't be shocked that I'm in the hot seat.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be shocked if they call you into the principal's office. Yeah. The thing that really stuck out to me is when we get to see Darnell and Alvin, right, at their homes. I mean, basically with them juxtaposed against Joe Kane, Darnell and Alvin, when they're either being recruited or they're talking football with their families, the whole community is involved. Everyone is riding on their athletic ability to either get them out of poverty or to, you know, it's because there's a lot of social commentary in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool. I didn't remember that. But it's such a big deal. And then we go to Joe Kane's house and his dad's like, yeah, can you get me another beer? You know,
I love his house so much. The beer can on the Christmas tree.
Yeah, the beer can on the Christmas tree. So it's like such a different juxtaposition. Although we'll see with Joe Kane, although it's not the community depending on him, which is a very big thing, obviously, in like minority communities when it comes to sports. Joe Kane has a lot of issues with his father in general, which we're definitely going to talk about because that drives all of his, that, you know, that's his core wound, his relationship with his dad. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Andy. Now, this is your movie, and I thought it was a great movie. And I wanted to say, first off, to James's point, lots of social commentary I didn't expect when I watched this, or at least football commentary at the very least. And we kind of get the first glimpse at that when they meet all their friends at the bar, and you can almost pick out what each of their individual issue is going to be with them all sat around the table. Tell me about these characters, your favorites, and all that good stuff going into it.
I love that you said that quarterback was like, I forget what you said, 35 or 40 years old.
40 years old, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. When Joe Kane's walking through the bar, he's like ordering beers. He's got like his leather jacket on. Yeah. I'm like, he looks like an older version of Patrick Swayze. That's what I thought. Like he just looks, I'm like, how is this guy in college? And then you look at Alvin Mack and you look at Latimer. Latimer's in college. That guy's in college.
Oh my God, that dude. That's a whole other story.
Alvin Mack and Latimer need to be the next WWE tag team champions because those guys are just a dynamic duo.
They look like some grown ass men. Okay.
Yeah. They are grown ass men.
and poor Alvin Mack. I mean, he tugs on our heartstrings from the beginning when he gives his mom the door knocker. And I was just kind of thinking, like, what a nice thing. And he says, I'm going to give you the house to go with this. But then I thought, like, what is she going to do with it in the meantime? Just seemed like a odd gift to give now. She just going to keep it to the side somewhere. I mean, it was a nice gift, but I was just like, what does she do with it in the meantime? It might get lost.
I was thinking if he lives in a bad neighborhood and she puts this beautiful door knocker on her front door, someone's going to break in and steal her stuff. That's what I was thinking.
True.
At the least.
Like if it was a bad neighborhood and you see this like solid gold door knocker get put on the door, I think everyone's going to be looking at your house like, what else do they got in there?
Yeah.
That suddenly Fool's going to be breaking in with a Bing Ray, stealing all your stuff.
One more thing too, I wanted to mention. Did you guys think that Darnell Jefferson was a little forward? He met Halle Berry Autumn on that college tour, and he goes and kisses her right away. I mean, did it seem quick to you? It seemed. I don't know. It just seemed like she gave him a tour, and he's like, "All right,
did you
I'll see you. I'll see you later."
Did you hear the lines he was using though? His lines were fire. Of course it worked. He was using big words. He called her classy. I mean, how do you say no to Omar Epps when he's spitting that kind of game?
He said, I'm not as young. I wrote this down. He says, I'm not as young as you think I am. They held me back a year. Like that was the spitting game line. That was the pickup line.
I mean, if he wanted to act old, he should have just said, if you think about the way Joe Kane is aging, I'm gonna be 50 in the next 3 years. So.
I'm the only one that looks like a college student.
Yeah, I want to talk about, by the way, I wish we still had that style of wearing super baggy shirts so that I could just grow my dad bod and no one would notice. That seemed to be so popular back then.
And vests. Omar Epps is rocking a lot of vests in this. At one point, he's got a vest with no shirt on.
Which really bold choice, by the way. Speaking of Darnell, though, they get back to school after summer break, I'm guessing, and Catwoman tells Darnell that she's got a Batman at home, and Batman is also the starting tailback. But he has no time to think about that. He has to take care of a football, like that bit on TV shows where kids learn how to take care of a baby by holding on to an egg that no one has ever actually done in real life, but happens on TV shows all of the time. And he shows just how serious he is about school by switching tutors to try and close the deal with Catwoman. Meanwhile, Joe Kane keeps the tradition of 90s leading men tucking their shirts into their jeans alive and hires a PR team with pins that say, Kane is able, and I 100% believe they named this guy Joe Kane just for this one pun. He's feeling himself, though, because when a girl tells him, I don't go out with football players, he immediately gets her to go out with him and then tries to kill her on a motorcycle because she beat the brakes off of him in tennis while the backup QB and the living embodiment of Stimpy are watching. Also, the Ultimate Warrior is lifting heavy while he's clearly roiding, and that's someone else's problem. So, James, I want to ask you, there's a lot of dating going on in this, a lot of relationships. And at this point in the movie, I'm asking myself, and I want you to answer this, is this a football movie disguised as a chick flick, or is this a chick flick disguised as a football movie?
Look, that's a great question. and this might be one reason why I wasn't into this movie as much, because it's not as football-y as I remember. I looked at the timestamp like when I was watching this, and you didn't get to an actual football game until about almost 40 minutes or so into the film. Now, it didn't mean it was like a slow film, but like an actual football game against another team besides like the opening credits. This is a relationship movie, and I think maybe that serves it well. Actually, it's probably why the movie ages well too, because it grounds us as we're basically seeing like the two lead characters, how they're trying to like seek love or companionship outside of the football field, but they're seeking it with people that they don't necessarily belong with, or people you wouldn't think that they're like just a great fit with. And also like, how are they reconciling, being college football players, but also dealing with their grades, emotional issues, what are they as a product to society? And to go back with Omar Epps, when you see Halle Berry's, I mean, like I said, they're doing a lot of stuff. It's very subtle, I caught my man with a white girl, I caught that. It's very subtle. And then you see her boyfriend, who's come on, does this dude Look like a starting tailback for a football
he's,
team.
He's a little bit more muscular Carlton Banks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's like a big dude, but that's it. He looks like he should work in the front office of a football team.
Yeah.
But, it's I just love Omar coming at him, oh, well, I'm the starting tailback. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's why they recruited me.
You better start strengthening your wrists.
Yeah.
It's a great return line on his part. Now, Andy, of course, I make the joke about this being a chick flick, but to James' point, it is kind of about the relationships that these guys are in and sort of where they're at in football, actually, as Kane obviously is at a point where he's trying to get to the next level. He's trying to become a Heisman winner. He's trying to go from being the team leader to being something even more, while Darnell, he's there just trying to fight his way onto the team, and he's making some enemies along the way. Now that we're sort of seeing guys settle into their roles, where are you at with the movie, and what are some of your favorite quotes thus far, if there's any?
Oh, there's so many. And can we just talk about how Joe Kane meets the original Buffy, the Vampire Slayer? He's walking in the weight room with the two other guys, the offensive lineman and the backup QB, I believe.
Yeah.
And he sees Buffy working out her leg. It's a big gym, and there's no one else there. And he decides to sit in the lat pull down machine, but faces the wrong way. So he's like the opposite way. So he's just staring at her, and he's working out in blue jeans. He's got blue jeans on, and then just right away is like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, just super creepy. And she just gobbles it right up. But I don't know. Joe Kane's got some kind of machismo. I don't know, but I don't see a lot of guys working out in blue jeans. But Joe Kane,
Andy, I'm shocked you didn't see how smart this move was. Clearly, Joe Kane watched Lionheart, and clearly he saw that girl's seduction workout method, and he was using it. The lat pull down machine. Everyone, just so you know, if you want to charm somebody, you let them see you work the lat pull down machine. Has worked 100% of the time in movies.
I like how he asked her. He's like, "So you're toning up?" She's got this big ass knee brace on.
Right.
But what throws me off, and I know you guys caught this, and I get it. If you're really good at tennis, you don't have to do much movement. You can send the other players going left and right. But I mean, the knee brace looks like it's a serious injury, but she's very nimble on that tennis court as she's like kicking his ass. So I just thought that was funny.
You're right. Yeah, she goes from like the hurt knee, and then all of a sudden this like a very intense tennis game.
Right.
And I was thinking about it this time. I always thought that scene with the motorcycle and him riding her on the motorcycle, I'm like, oh my God, Joe Kane is just so cool. Like, he just drives real fast and he just flies over this ravine. And watching it the second time, two things popped in my head. One, it's not him at all at the jump over the ravine. Like, they didn't even try on the stuntman. If you go back and look at it, Joe Kane's got this beautiful hair. The stuntman's got like a really short like haircut too. I'm like, they didn't even try to give him like the same hair. But also I was thinking how creepy it is. Like, Buffy's on the back of this motorcycle and he's like literally in the middle of nowhere. I don't know where he goes, but if you were her, wouldn't you be like freaking out? You just met this guy working out in blue jeans and suddenly you're on his motorcycle in this random, I don't even know where he went. Some like industrial kind of, that's the place where you get murdered.
Yeah.
He called her in the middle of the night, too. Let's remember that. He called her like at 3 a.m. and said, "I'm picking you up at 6 p.m. Just remember that.
That's true.
Right. Well, guys, when you're on the football team, you don't need to put in effort. You can be as creepy as you want, and it works every time.
Facts.
Speaking of this scene, though, I thought it was interesting that he ends it and he woos her by saying that she somehow got all the dogs in the area to want to mate with her.
Oh, yeah.
Which isn't that kind of implying she's a bitch?
And then is this after the motorcycle? Do they go to that kind of seedy towny bar afterwards?
Yeah, just like The Bodyguard. The same bar from The Bodyguard.
That's the same bar.
It's a connected universe. I'm telling you.
Gosh.
I mean, he made the statement of going somewhere where people didn't know him. You know, and if they don't know Whitney at that bar,
they
obviously don't know
Joe Kane. That would be great.
If Joe Kane.
In the background, you see Frank Farmer with Whitney Houston.
Because
even the music was similar. It had I wrote down, it had "If You Don't Know Me by Now,"
which is great, right? Didn't it sound so good in this movie, even compared to when you hear it? Yeah, it was great.
Which would have been better if the original Buffy ripped that song off at the end of this one to really seal the deal.
That'd be great.
I do want to say one of my favorite lines of this movie was very subtle, and it was when Darnell was lying about his parents, and Catwoman literally says, "Gee whiz."
Yeah, gee whiz, Darnell.
Now, someone wrote that into a script, and
she
stayed into the script.
Gee whiz, Darnell. Hey, Darnell. She did. I was trying to count how many times she just says, "Hey, Darnell."
They clearly were writing the male characters a little bit better than they were writing the female characters in this movie. But let's continue on. The season starts, and we see the different ways guys prep for the season to start. Mac talks about killing quarterbacks and hurting their girlfriend, while one half of the Road Warriors headbutts a window while reciting a soliloquy on what it means to be part of a team and taking piss tests. They win the game, and some old dude gives Darnell a whopping $50 and mouths the words, "Don't spend it all in one place." Probably. Mac tells him not to stress it and actually hits the first of what would be many serious issues addressed in the movies. Schools making millions while college sports athletes make nothing. But hey, Darny Drip Drip and his $50 walks up to Catwoman and demands to dance with Batman's girl. And she says to her man, "Just one." And he says, "Okay." What the hell? That dude just got punked. And then she goes ice skating with this guy. In any case, Catwoman realizes ice skating and dancing don't help to teach math because Darnell gets a D on his test. Meanwhile, Joe Swanson's wife helps the backup cheat on a test and gets him expelled, while James Caan wants to run a clean program unless it's steroids involved. All that going on while Kane is dealing with his own issues as his press secretary is getting all up in his business. So he does that thing where instead of breaking up with someone, you just treat them real bad until they dump you. Classic. A near run-in with a train leads to him telling her one day he'll be an alcoholic, just like his father and his father's father before him. Now, this is where we see things kind of falling apart for everybody. This is that part of the movie where things necessarily aren't going great. Andy, tell us about where you're at in the movie and some of your favorite parts thus far.
Oh, there's just so much going on. This movie is just so good. So yeah, Alvin Mack killed a quarterback, hit the tight end so hard his girlfriend dies, kill everybody. Just like it's so great that Alvin Mack can say these things and he's still so likable. Like he's like a very likable badass. And quick trivia, the actor that plays Alvin Mack, I looked him up and I was just kind of curious his background. His son in real life just got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. So Alvin Mack's son is in the NFL. He's an offensive lineman. So that happens. And then we got Latimer. I don't remember Andrew Bryniarski, I think is his real name. He's an amazing actor. I mean, yeah, he's just a monster guy, and they're like, yeah, go be a monster guy. But I mean, he just really goes for it, crushing his head into the windshield, into the side mirror or side window. There's blood all over his face. Place at the table. Starting defense. Just insane.
He kept repeating that. Place at the table. It's a great line. Actually.
His face paint, and then all the fun stuff he's doing with his urine.
Stuff he's doing with his urine.
He's got it hidden in the toilet. He's got some weird long hair guy coming in and putting fresh urine in him. Yeah, just those two together, man. What a combo.
Yeah, talk about a good starting, a good pass rush, as they would say.
And Latimer rips off a guy's helmet at one point and just leaves. He just leaves the game, and he's just holding the guy's helmet.
He doesn't give it back to the
Never
quarterback.
Gives it back.
And let's talk about Latimer He's doing, after that final practice, everyone's wiped out. Latimer's doing power cleans
Yeah.
with 800 or I don't know how many pounds is on that damn thing.
And
he's doing power cleans, and James Caan and the two assistant coaches are great, aren't they?
They are
great. 1-2 punch. They're there for comedy. Yeah. And they're just basically talking about this dude's juicing. They're like, oh, well, look, let's keep it. Let's not tell him that because he might rip our heads off. And then they're like, look, there's some juicing going on. And James Caan is just like, yeah, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Like, he's kind of implicit. I've never seen a human being so prison ripped as Latimer. Now, look, we've seen a lot of guys. I don't know if this dude was in the WWE. This dude is, I don't know how much red meat it takes to get that thick and jacked, but this dude is prison ripped. Okay?
He's the reason there's no bison running in the open anymore. I think he ate them all.
Was he Zangief? I think he was Zangief in the Street Fighter movie as well.
Okay, that would make sense. He's huge.
He is so, he was even next to Mac, who was a big dude.
Yeah.
Like, he looked big. My big question, especially with him, is, guys, when can we bring back the men's wearing midriff?
If you look like him, well, see, that was a triple XL shirt.
It would look like a dress on me,
right?
But on him, it's just covering his nipples.
But you bring up an interesting point about James Caan, because this is the first time, or this is where he really shows that he's okay with some things being bad as long as you get wins, but he's not okay with other things. Now, we haven't gotten to some of the well, I guess we did get to the cheating, which got the backup quarterback expelled. He's like, not on my team, not on my watch. You embarrassed me. But Latimer's, he's out there roiding up. Clearly, he's like, hey, boys will be boys. I don't know. It's game day, and it's a shootout before Kane gets knocked silly, brushing on concussions in football. But none of that matters because Jefferson is in now, and Mr. Steal Your Girl is about to become Mr. Steal Your Job. And it's not enough for the team and to win, so they lose, and the players deal with the loss in their own ways. Royds McKenzie beats up a girl and tries to rape her, again shedding an eye on some pretty serious issues, while Darnell is getting mad that his tutor didn't introduce him to her dad as her boyfriend, even though her actual boyfriend is standing right behind him. Kane gets drunk at a bar, gets into a fight, and is out for 4 games and goes to rehab. He points to the sky and says, "This one's for you, Dad," probably. But before he starts pacing around her room in a robe, because apparently rehab facilities are the love child of prisons and day spas, the games go by and the rapist is welcomed back with cheers, which seemed kind of weird to me. But Mac's mouth finally writes a check his ass can't cash as he's hurt and his career is over, leaving him with no football, no education, and no future. Another big subject in football. This would have bummed me out, but we get a prolonged butt shot of Jesse the Body Ventura as he gets his raspberry Bonds flavored Flintstone vitamin shot.
It was a long time.
Way longer than it needed to be. But the act wraps up with Kane's girl mad at him because he didn't call her every damn minute he was in rehab, dealing with the abuse issue he told her about. And that reminds him to visit his dad in the back house behind the textile factory. When he invites him to the big game, his dad does the thing where instead of just saying no, he's mean to him until he gets uninvited. Like father, like son, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, I guess. We're seeing things falling apart, and now we're hoping they can get back together in time. This is before the end. This is where things look their bleakest. Any thoughts on the characters, the situation, and what's going on?
Yeah, I thought it was the stuff with Joe Kane. I thought was interesting. Like I didn't remember that, but I mean, it was really kind of touching on, even though they didn't go as deep as possible, but like the mental health of a superior athlete, and the pressures. Because like I said, Joe Kane at the beginning of the season, he's a Heisman hopeful. And how is all this pressure going to take on him? Because he's supposed to take them to the promised land. And, his pressure juxtaposed to Darnell's, who's just trying to make the team and fit in. He's from the hood and he's trying to fit in. He finds this girl that he's really just, he's really fallen for, but she's from a different kind of background. And, his whole thing is he good enough? And juxtaposed is Joe Kane, is he good enough to be this Heisman winner? And also, once again, the thing that happens with a lot of, men is the unrequited love from that father, trying to get that father's approval, right? And it threw me off because he's grown up to be this superior quarterback athlete, but his dad has never gone to a football game. Wait, I'm trying to figure this. How is that even possible? Like, how is he even getting to practice? Is he taking like the bus?
Like, good point. His dad was asleep on the porch with a cigarette in his mouth.
Just living the dream, beer in hand,
right? I thought it was interesting, and I mean, you talk about. I mean, I have all these lines here, but the coach's bimbo daughter. I thought that he loved me. I'm sorry. That's a whole other thing, because I mean, it's like, really, this is his daughter, like, But there was a line from Alvin in game, and I don't know if we've gotten to that part yet, but it's very excellent. Before he gets hurt, he says, "You're going to have 250 pounds of pissed off expletive up your ass." Just picture that, ladies and gentlemen. Because when he said that,
and he says, doesn't he call somebody a poo butt motherfucker?
I love how he psychs himself up by saying the other players are these people that have wronged him in some way.
Wronged him and his family.
One of the guys responds, he's like, I didn't know your mama.
Yeah.
Please don't hurt me.
But the long drawn out monologues, I did find those kind of comical, because I'm like, I don't know. It's so quiet on that football field while they're talking to each other.
The ball. What game takes? It's like they're like blue 80 for 30 minutes. Blue 80, blue, and then Alvin Mack monologue.
Yeah, monologue.
They're actually counting to blue 8, like blue 1, blue 2, blue 3. Now, Andy, this is where I remember this. The 90s were filled with edgy kind of movies, and they wanted to push the envelope in the 90s. And this was one of those movies. And I think this part of the movie is what really brings that out. There's not a happy ending for Alvin Mack in this part of the movie. And the idea of this guy trying to get off of steroids by flushing the syringes, which seems not like the smartest move in the world. I mean, you don't need to flush the syringe, just it's what's in it anyways. But the total package Lex Luger had some trouble getting rid of those things. But this is kind of where we see all those things, that it's not necessarily going to be the happy ending for some of these people. Was this something as a kid that got you into the movie, or were you more just the quotes? And do you have any more quotes for us? Because I know we've jumped a big part of the movie. I want to hear all the quotes.
Oh, yeah. I'll take a quick step back here for a sec. I noticed in this viewing the first time ever, we talked about that ice skating scene. If you guys go back, or if our listener goes back and watches or hasn't watched yet, during the ice skating scene, there is a dude in the middle of the ice rink just killing it, just flying through the air, making these whatever ice skating moves, and he doesn't stop. He's just like on fire the whole time when Jefferson falls down. So watch that. I never saw that before. But there's some great lines. So Joe Kane is at the bar, and one of my favorite parts, the townie guy comes up to him and he says, "Hey, are you looking at my girl?" Joe Kane says, "I don't know. Which one is she?" And then he says, "What do you think, my girl's hot for you?" And Joe Kane says, "Probably." It's so great. He's just so cool. Joe Kane's just so cool. I mean, when you're 35 in college. He's very throwback to like a James Dean with the leather jackets all the time, and kind of always leaning back and too cool for school, too old for school too, but it's too cool for school. And James Shippey, I feel like you stole this line from Omar Epps when we did our film. I could be wrong, but didn't you say a perfect ending to a fucked up day or something like that? when Omar Epps gets pulled over, I think you dropped that line.
Oh, you know what? I think so. Now, either that was in the script, but if I said it, that must have been so much in the subconscious. Because like I said, So, thank you, Omar Epps. I wish I would have said some of his other lines too.
Oh yeah, you got his eyes. Good thing you don't got his thighs. And
I've seen a lot of shitty things in life, Otto. That's why I know when I see something good. I was like, this dude is so smooth, man.
Sorry to go back to Joe Kane for 1 second. So I mentioned in the last podcast that they pulled a scene from the movie, and there's like a scene where they like go on the highway and lay down, and like kids got hurt. I think a kid got killed actually. So they removed it. But what I was thinking, Joe Kane is walking towards a train in one scene. Like at the last set, we don't even see him move out of the way. But I was like, why didn't they remove that one? I felt like that was crazy. She's just like, oh, Joe. But it's like, dude was just walking towards a train. Like
he wasn't just walking towards it. He was like smoldering towards it too.
You know, the music picks up.
He was like looking at it. He was looking at it like he was trying to seduce the train as it was coming at him.
Yeah, that's true. Smoldering towards the train.
And it didn't work out, so he had to jump out of the way.
The train wasn't impressed.
No, the train's like, I've seen better.
Train sped up, actually.
Yeah. But you mentioned Alvin Mack. Man, that scene is just so sad when James Caan comes in and sees him and he says, "You were the best defensive player ever coached." Like,
yeah, because that's when he says that. That's when, as a viewer, you realize, oh, he's not just hurt; he's done. He's injured. Over for him.
Well, it was predestined for him because the whole movie, he's like, it doesn't matter. School doesn't matter, right? But he's such a superior athlete. I mean, I remember hearing one time one of the commentators like, yes, all pro, linebacker or D end or whatever position he plays. So he's going to go to the league, but he's not thinking about any fallback plans, which, if you're that great, most people aren't. But it's a Russian roulette. I mean, it could go either way. Especially in the game of football, an injury could derail you, especially back then.
And that's the power of this movie. I think what makes it so good, again, is the fact that they do touch on so many, whether it be the steroid abuse, whether it be the athletes not getting paid, whether it be the concussions, the mental health issues. But yeah, James, to your point, this part where so many athletes, I think they don't have a backup plan. And then when the sport is done with them, they're cast aside and there's nothing left for them. That's probably one of the heaviest messages, I think, in this movie, is that even if you are great, you need that backup plan. Because there are people that make it to the NFL that they play for a few years and then they wash out and then they're left with nothing.
The average NFL, yeah, that's a great point, Jack. I mean, the average NFL career is like 3.5 years, they say. So just think about that. And, I've known some people that have gone to the league and, I mean, they were very good in high school, college, but I mean, it's really tough, like even on that next level to even have a sustained career. So what do you do? Right.
Right.
Well, if you're Steve Latimer, you pull your pants down, you put a needle in your butt and you say, "No problem." That's like his
seat at the table. Put the kids to bed. Go get dinner.
Yeah. Okay.
Seat at the table.
What?
At the table.
I've heard that line from Joe Kane all these years. He says it 4 times, I think.
Yeah.
Let's put the women and children in the bed and go looking for dinner. And then at the end, he says, "Let's looking for fucking dinner." I'm sorry, guys. What the hell is he talking about? Do you guys have any idea? What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't get it. Because why would you put your kids to bed and then go get dinner? Like, are they not eating? Are you?
I'm assuming you feed them something different, right? You feed them, oatmeal, or you feed them the scraps, and then you go to Red Lobster.
I imagine like the kid and the wife are like, "We're hungry. Go to bed. I'm gonna go get dinner with the fellas."
I like how James said, "Give your wife and kids oatmeal and scraps."
Dad, can I have more scraps with my oatmeal? So, in any case, we get to the final game, and the game isn't going very well, and the two running backs fight. But I'm kind of rooting for Griffin here. He was totally getting screwed by this guy taking his girl, taking his job. And when things can't get any worse, the coach flips a table and everyone thinks that's pretty cool. So they're on board now. And coach declares Kane will start the second half. And everyone cheers because fuck the backup who just lost his job trying his best.
Bobby Collins.
The game starts, and the old rich dudes from Lionheart are watching the game and have the best seat in the house to see Griffin and Jefferson work together. Lex Luger tackle a dude to snot bubbles, and Kane do his best Russell Wilson impression. throwing a dime to Jefferson for the touchdown. ESU wins! ESU wins! ESU wins! And everyone celebrates like they don't have a bowl game the next week. And the season wraps up with everything starting all over again. Sans the Scarecrow in the win. This was another movie where not everyone had a happy ending, but some people, I think, did. We wrapped everything up. Let me know how you feel this movie sort of turned out for everybody.
Yeah, well, let's put something out there. Darnell playing with his test scores in his helmet. Yeah, I think the good thing with sports films like this, especially football, in this country, or depending on what I think this film is supposed to take place in South Carolina, but it's the South, or like where I'm from in Texas. What happens is in your communities, a lot of people, they put everything into the football players. They're like legends, local heroes, especially if you don't have a local, if you don't have like a pro team there. And I just like how they give a dose of realism, at the end of it. So obviously, unfortunately, you have Alvin. He's listening. I think he's listening on the radio to the game, right? So so that also lets you another thing about like maybe how impoverished his family is. That they don't even have a TV to watch it wherever he's from. You have Latimer. I always never understood why he was crying.
I think because he saw in his eyes he was like crazy looking, and so he knew that something was off. And then Latimer knew that Coach knew something was off, and so he knew he wasn't going to be on the team again.
That's what I figured. Okay,
yeah.
I just wasn't sure about that. But yes, he's crying as he's finally, with his tears of joy, because it's still not a natural way for him to go ahead. So, and that's maybe another thing. Like, hey, even though you're going to get all these accolades or whatever, you still can't cheat the game. It will still catch up with you. This isn't going to turn out well. Darnell, it seems like now he's finally being accepted by Catwoman, as you say. So anyone would love that, right?
And
I mean, he's got the best ending of all of them.
Yeah, he's got the best ending of everyone. He's
he impresses her dad too.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think is Jimmy Kahn and I don't think he even has a line at the very end. It's just the assistant coaches talking to him. It's all business. They're already getting ready to recruit again. It's like it's kind of a revolving thing. Recruiting. How can you keep an edge? It's all business. The guys have their dossiers and their old school briefcases.
And you mentioned it earlier, James. Those two assistant coaches are pretty great throughout the whole movie. For one, they have really short shorts, which is excellent of that era. Yeah. But they're almost like narrators throughout the movie.
They did mention recruiting a guy to replace Latimer too at the end. That's kind of where I thought that maybe they knew he was going to be. He was going to be done. I have a question though. It was funny to me that the backup quarterback seemed to be the butt of all the jokes at the end, and he had to clean up all the mess. While there's a guy who's on steroids and trying to rape people that everyone like is rallying around, and maybe it's just different times. But I was thinking, all the backup did was try to cheat on a test. This guy tried to commit a felony and destroy someone's life, and everyone's like, "Whatever, he's got cool face paint on, bro. Let's go win a game." Like the backup never did anything that was like terrible. I mean, he cheated on a test
with the coach's daughter. That was the big problem. You defamed my family. Get out of my face. Until it's time to still win a game. Then he's like, okay, we'll come back. Let's talk about this.
And I think it's implied that Bobby Collins is sort of like a jerk off. Like, I don't know. I feel like he probably was friends with the Cobra Kai back in the day. Like he just has that kind of hair and attitude. There's something diabolical about Bobby Collins.
Yeah, but I mean, what Jack says is true. I mean, as you see the scene now, I mean, you cringe when you see that girl.
She's
we talk about us. She's
very
like
tiny person.
Yeah, she's very tiny. And I mean, I remember as a kid seeing him kind of throw her around in the room, but I didn't know it was that violent. I mean, he like was tossing her around like she's on a football field. I mean, he's tossing her into, lamps and side tables and this and that. And I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, that part doesn't age well. And you're right. There's how much they address it, but they're probably, I mean, they're being true to form. That's probably how this was addressed back then. And hopefully not anymore. I mean, you never know. Right. But I mean, I think of a lot of stuff, even when Joe gets into that bar fight with that guy, have times changed, because obviously that makes the news because he gets a DWI, right? But if that was happening now and he was in a bar fight, like everyone had their phones up, you know, so that would be on social media just like that, you know. So this is fascinating.
You make a good point too. Yeah, because if a Heisman Trophy candidate was in a bar fight and got, you know, had to go to rehab and a DUI, that'd be huge news on ESPN. Mm-hmm. People would be talking about that like crazy. But I guess maybe in the 90s, maybe they wouldn't anyways, because they didn't have the coverage back then. You know, they had like the one channel for sports news, as opposed to now where you have so many different places you would be getting that news. But
one thing they had in the 90s, at least 1993, was the helmet cam that they brought in on that last game. Where was that the rest of the movie? I don't know, but Darnell Jefferson's punt return, I believe. Do you guys remember that? There was is like a helmet cam. It's great. It's like a video game. And I just felt like at that time, that was probably like amazing technology. Now it was like, and every time Darnell would say something, I noticed his mouth never moved. So I think it was just like, he just recorded it later, like 26, but you never you never see him move his mouth. But the helmet cam I thought was cool.
No, it was.
Well, that kind of does it for us. Any final thoughts? And James, we'll let you start. Any final thoughts on the movie, looking back at it?
Yeah, I thought it was a great film. I looked up who directed this, a guy named David S. Ward, and he wrote and directed Major League, which is another great sports movie, baseball, that has a perfect combination of drama and comedy. Right. Wild Thing. But I thought that because watching this movie, there were some good laugh out loud moments, but they weren't played. They were played straight, but I know they were played to be funny. But yeah, I just think this movie has aged pretty well for the most part. And I think that what really helps is grounding us and seeing how Darnell and once again, how Joe deal with the mental health side and like getting acceptance from a father who's never like supported him in his dream. And then Darnell trying to be accepted in like kind of like a more, you know, I don't know, civilized or like kind of like upper scale society. And how does he be comfortable in his own skin while also trying to impress this girl and make the team? I thought those were two great ways to ground the story, which I was surprised that was in this one.
Yeah, to your point, I think the stuff that we say, quote unquote, doesn't age well too, actually just makes it feel more like a timepiece in a good way, where the things like the way they respond to Latimer coming back after what he did, that was likely how it was in 93, because there wasn't an awareness for that kind of thing, or at least a social accountability for that kind of thing. Like and more is happening now. So it's, in a way, I think the stuff that hasn't aged well actually makes it a better period piece in that regard. True. Andy, thanks for recommending this one. It was fun. Any thoughts you want to share with the viewers and listeners about the movie you picked?
Yeah, well, I think like looking back to all the football action in the movie is actually shot really well. Like you actually feel like you're at like a college game. And I think the cool thing about this movie is, and opposed to a lot of other football movies or a lot of other sports movies, is they got like the license. Like they actually play University of Michigan, they play Iowa, I think it's Georgia Tech, Mississippi State maybe. And it's like their full logo. I always am a little taken out of a movie when it's like
the Mustangs.
It's just like a random team and a goofy logo, especially if it was 90s. The logo probably doesn't look great either. So I really like the action of the movie, kind of going back, like, and when they did the Welcome to the Jungle part with the football practice, like it looks good. Like that's I believe they did have actual players and former players like doing all that kind of stuff. So it looked really well. It was great to go back and check it out. I agree with you guys. It is crazy to think about like somebody like a Latimer is so praised, and it like literally is a psychopath who did go on to play Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So
really?
It all does make sense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And Joe Kane, this guy's great. It had to be a career highlight for him just to play this kind of rebellious quarterback. And they just kept getting you to understand how much of a bad boy he was. He gets in fights. He's in his robe doing his time in rehab, and he gets the girl by wearing blue jeans and doing reverse lat pull downs. And then he's so fun. He's kind of like the Kevin Costner character where he's like subtle funny. Like at the end, he thinks he's so clever when he says, "Hey, you want to share a 6-pack?" And then he brings out the Sprite, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a good one, Joe Kane."
The first when he did that, I was like, "That's a lot of sugar." That was my first thought. Maybe I'm becoming an old man, but I was like, "That's a lot of sugar."
And yeah, how do you share it? Like, if I were to present like a 6-pack of Sprite to you guys, do we have to finish all 6 like right away, or is it like I'll have one, maybe one later?
Yeah, that's a lot of Sprite to drink.
A lot of Sprite. Especially
in one
2
sitting.
people, 3 on 3. I'll drink 3, you drink 3.
Yeah, the way you do beers, right? Yeah, like how's this gonna work?
And I do have a question for you two. I'm just kind of curious of your thoughts. So after the movie, like we're not really sure what happens to all these players. In your guys' opinion, who do you think goes pro?
Well, I'll tell you who had the worst ending for everyone, because everyone has every movie we watch, someone has a bad ending. I gotta say, Halle Berry, she gave up a guy who was going to school to be a doctor looking like ripped Carlton, and she leaves for some guy who's a freshman who probably at best will have 3 years in the NFL before washing out and not able to get a job because he's got D+ in school. Come on. She just threw her future away.
I believe Omar, I believe Darnell Jefferson's going to go on to become a excellent actor on shows like ER or whatever Omar Epps did. A dude with that much game, he'll be just fine. Okay? Yeah, he'll be just fine. Now the problem is he going to still be into her a few years from now? He is a freshman after all. Yeah, so that might be the problem in the grand scheme.
Well, the guy that I think we didn't even mention one time in this whole movie, who I think is going pro, is their offensive tackle, Bud Light Kaminsky.
Oh yeah,
they made a highlight of playing offensive line look pretty cool. He's like singing his song and he's just like blocking this guy out. I'm like, no, offensive line. You never see in any sports movie. Have you ever seen like one of the main characters as an offensive lineman? I feel like never.
No.
But I'm like, if they're showing this guy, he's got to be the
unsung heroes of the football.
Even
football. Yeah.
Even in actual football games, the line is never the heroes, even though they do so much for the game. But that guy looking just like a Pinterest board of what 90s goofs are supposed to be dressed like. So I think that about wraps up the movie. Before signing off, though, we got to figure out what we're going to be watching for 1994. James, this is all you. What are we watching?
Well, there's a lot of great films that came out in 94, and it came down to 3. One of them was, we love Keanu Reeves. We love the Keanu Reeves School of Acting, which is the best. Speed, which I feel like was the first movie that put him in that stratosphere. It's like, this he isn't just Bill and Ted. This isn't just Ted from Bill and Ted. This dude's like got leading man quality. And then the other movie was another horror classic from John Carpenter, the king of horror movies, called In the Mouth of Madness. But to show love to the birthday boy here, a guy, Andy Stallion Rossi, I figured we need to visit a classic for all of the film fans, and that would be Pulp Fiction, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
That's what we're going to be watching. 1994. It's a classic. It has aged well. It is a timeless movie. I just love that film, and I'm sure you guys do too. So,
one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, by the way.
Great soundtrack.
Yeah,
great soundtrack.
And the Jackie Brown one is great too.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino always has good soundtracks. Yeah. He's very good about those.
Yeah. So did the program, though. I mean, the Bodines, Don't Pass Me Over, Don't Pass Me By.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give you this, Jack, before we leave. As we're talking here, real quick, we got to do it. We got James Caan.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. This is the
6 degrees of separation.
6 degrees of separation.
You're
Kevin Bacon.
From Kevin Bacon.
You're gonna like this one because I think I've used the same movie every time we've done this, so it's gonna happen again. We got James Caan is in The Godfather with Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall is in Godfather 2 with Robert De Niro, and Robert De Niro is in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
I love it. Well played once again.
I think it's been Sleepers each week.
Yeah, Sleepers is always the go-to,
which is a terrifying movie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking of that, before we go, this time we wanted to give a 2-week lead on what the movies we're going to be watching are. So we're doing, this was 93. It was The Program. James, you've already recommended 1994's Pulp Fiction. But to give people some more time to watch the movies, we're going to let everyone know what 1995 is going to be. And when picking this one, again, a lot of great choices, but I wanted to pick something that was a slice of 1995 and what the world was like then. So I am going with Empire Records. Tons of music from that time.
Nice.
Basically what it's like to be a teen in 1995. So that should be a fun watch, but I know we are running late on time, so we got to get out of here. James, where can the world find you online?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at jshippy2 and Instagram at JEShippy2.
And Andy Rossi.
You can find me at just Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media to see what I'm up to. Again, do the world a favor. Thanks for listening to the show, but do us a favor. Just hit the like button on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit share. If you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff matters. And we will be seeing you next year.